Welcome back to the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Muddy, your Hannibal Race Pro and Strength and Speed owner, Evan Preparis. I got a guest with me on the line. Before we get to him, though, a quick word from this episode's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by the OCR Report. Yeah, that's right. We are now part of the OCR Report. Hopefully the news is already out by the time this episode comes out, but I've been doing a little bit of work for the OCR Report on and off for the last couple of years. Officially kind of pulled myself into the fold, or Will Hicks pulled me into the fold, so shout out to him. And in case I forget to mention at the end of the episode, this is part of 30 days of podcasts in September. There's a catchier name for it that I'm screwing up. But the OCR Report is putting out a podcast every day for the month of September. So make sure you listen. I believe yesterday was Fran and Carlo, and tomorrow should be the OCR Report. So we're mass producing content for September, really trying to kind of bring all the podcasting and the back to life, because I feel like it's taken a hit since COVID, and I would love to see it get back to its previous numbers, and I'd love to see the sport continue to grow. All right, joining me on the podcast, we have, I believe, 7-time World's Toughest Muddy and podium finisher, 2-time World's Toughest Mudder winner, Trevor Cichosz.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. Good to have you back on, right? I've had you on once before, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. If you don't know Trevor, he is so consistent at World's Toughest. It is insane. I think your average was like 800 your average was 100 miles per event for several years, which is insane because weather conditions change, course changes, obstacles change. It's just so impressive, the consistency. So just incredible hats off to you.
Oh, thanks. I want to give a shout out to Will Hicks as well. I love that guy, and love you too, man. You're great. You're super proactive and you're consistent in the sport. You're always there, and I love your podcast. So thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Trevor. So we do want to we're gonna be talking a lot about Trevor's new book, but before we get to that, I want to do a quick catch up on kind of what he's been up to since World's Toughest. So since World's Toughest, which was back in November, what have you been up to? You've been doing much racing, or just kind of
being a dad? Being a dad.
Yeah.
So actually, that stat about averaging 100 miles last year, I dropped out at midnight. Just missed my son. He wasn't there, so I went to sleep. And also, I threw up like 7 times.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I got like 65 miles that year, and I guess screwed my. Who cares? Whatever. I'm gonna be back this year. Me and Austin are gonna.
I'm sure
go at it.
I'm sure you're gonna come back with a vengeance. I am. I've never walked onto a start line, saw you, and been like, "Oh no, he'll probably have a bad race." I've always been like, "All right, well, let me see how long I can hold on." That's usually my thought process when I'm on the start line with you.
Yeah, crank the throttle and grip it, grip it, and rip it, right?
Yeah. Funny you should say that. The only time I remember feeling like mentally being like, what am I doing here, was in 2015. I flew back for World's Toughest from Lebanon, and my daughter was about 8 months old at the time. And that was the only time I remember being on the race course and being like, what am I doing with my life? I'm like, I should be at home. And here I am schlepping around the desert of Las Vegas. I flew across the world to schlep around the desert. My relatively new daughter was kind of in the hotel nearby. So
yeah,
I feel
being a father changes, and as you get older, you're like, oh, the first one is the most delicate thing in the world. Second one's like, oh, I don't care anymore. So once I have a second one, yeah, I'll get back into racing more seriously. But
yeah, my first one was a girl too, and my second one's a boy. So you get the princess, and then you give the second one. I give the second one a little more tough love. So.
I do love the fact of having an older daughter. That's what that was my goal, but you can't choose. So.
Yeah. So are we going to see you on any courses before World Toughest coming up?
I don't have any plans. I'm going to sign up for this race here in October 12th, and it's 18,000 feet of vertical and 50K. So 50K is 31 miles. So it's pretty crazy race.
What's the name of the race?
It's by Rain Shadow Running in Washington, and it's up this very steep hill, and you just lap it. So it's almost like Everesting, and it's the very first year I put this on, and it's an 18-hour cutoff. So just thinking about, I got to do 18,000 feet and 31 miles, 18 hours cutoff. So I got to be able to ascend 1,000 feet in, maybe 30 minutes continuously for 18 hours just
Yes.
to make. So I'm going to find out what's going on, but it'll be a good training run for WTM.
Nice. What month is that you said?
October 12th.
October.
But I'm going to try to find a race in September. I've been doing those swim run races, the Attila ones. You heard about them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean, remember Chris Maltby? He was race director
I was
last
about
year.
to ask you about that. Yeah. Didn't you just do one with Chris?
Yeah, we flew out to Maine, and he's like, "Hey, you want to do a swim run race with me?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What distance you want to do?" I'm like, "Well, if I'm flying to Maine, we're gonna do the longest one." So we did the World Series distance, which is like 20 something, 22 miles, I think. But I never swam in my life. I wasn't special forces like you. In the Marines, you swim across the pool, like, all right, good to go. Um, so I saw this like 1,200 meter swim across open water, ocean. I'm like, no. But yeah, just followed Chris's wake, and we finished. We didn't win. We didn't win anything, but we passed everyone on the running, but everyone passes back on the swimming.
Yeah.
So it was super cool. I love that format. But
Cool. Cool. Well, since we mentioned you as a father, again, before we jump into your book, I know your wife is a very accomplished athlete, and I'm not sure I've heard anyone talk about her on any other podcasts. So why don't you brag on your wife for a little bit?
all right, so Stephanie got scholarship to University of Virginia, and top athlete there. She got a full sponsorship with New Balance, which she did for what, over 10 years. She she missed the Rio Olympics 2016. She basically led the entire race, dominated that race, right? But her sports steeplechase. Sorry, so steeplechase is
Side note, which
uh,
is it's essentially obstacle course racing, just with no upper body. That is, if we want to
yeah.
get technical, that technically is obstacle course racing in the Olympics. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So basically, you're running the track, but you got hurdles and also have a water jump, which you go over this big beam and get in the water and you keep running. Anyway, she dominated that race, but she tripped over one of the hurdles and got fourth place. I
Oh,
mean, her parents had already bought tickets to Rio because she was a shoe in. She was the best athlete at the time in the U.S. She also had, for a long time, she had the 10th fastest mile for a female in the United States. Um, but then injuries start coming. COVID happened, all these things, and now she's switching to the marathon. She did the trials last December. She went to Sacramento and did CIM, and she'd never ran more than 16 miles in her life at the time, and she got a 2:52 on the marathon, and now she's going to do the Marine Corps Marathon in Virginia in October, and she's going for the Olympic trials for the marathon here in 2028, and she'll make it.
nice, nice. What do we have to do to convince her to get into obstacle course racing?
It's funny
Or
is when we started talking, she sent me. She's like, here's my goals. One of them was to be Spartan world champ, right? And the other one was, the Olympics. But now that we got Charlie, she's kind of like, I'm gonna go for the the Olympics and focus on one goal.
yeah, that's probably a good call. Yeah, cool.
But
Well,
she, oh, sorry, she did Spartan racing for a year, but since she was had no experience, she did the amateur. And, I don't know what you call it. What do you call it when you're not the elite, the one below it?
so either age group, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So she did age group, and she won every single race she did, but she never went for elite because she didn't feel like she deserved that spot because obstacle racing is so much different than track and trail.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. Well, let's dive into your book. So first, tell us the name of the book, and then tell us a little bit about what's it about, and then I'll kind of start asking some little deeper questions.
All right, so the name of the book is Dear Grandma Rose, and basically my grandma Rose has created this like amazing archive and all these folders, right? She's got letters, pictures, everything from our family history from when we moved to the U.S., even before that, all the way up to now. And she gives me all those for safekeeping because she knows that I like history as much as her. And so I started scanning my letters, so I could print them and put them in there. But while I was scanning them, I started reading them. I'm like, you know what? This is I should publish this because all the books from the War on Terror, they're all written by, no offense, special forces people, Navy SEALs, all that stuff, right? All the hoorah stories, but no one knows about the day-to-day grunt life of stirring poop with a freaking fence post from a
Yeah.
55-gallon drum, and all the politics and involved. So I was like, there's some good knowledge in here, and I think that it would do good for people to read it because it could teach you a little bit of humility in people's lives. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So I scan all those letters, put them in PDF, and then I fill in the blanks on by writing. There's a lot of blanks, but yeah. So I wrote it and then published it. And I haven't promoted that much. I don't really care how it does. I went back and forth by releasing it all just because there's a lot of personal stuff in there. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's hard a lot of feedback.
Cool. Yeah. When I first heard about it, I was a little from like an author side. I was like, well, is it going to make sense? Because if it's just letters to your grandmother, there's going to be huge gaps in there. But when I started reading it, I was like, oh, before you start getting into the letters, you go through like your end of high school into joining the Marines, which I thought was very interesting, especially as someone who knows you. And I like when I think Trevor Cichosz, I'm like world toughest mudder, 2-time champion, like unstoppable athlete, and here you are like a high school, like degenerate, and it's like I got nothing better to do, so I might as well join the Marines.
I was a loser, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And the other thing I thought was really funny was like you joined the Marines with some other dude, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens to him?
He dropped out in like 15 minutes. Serious.
I could not believe that. I was like, oh, this is like his battle buddy. They're gonna go through the whole thing, and then it was like, oh, and there he goes.
Worst part was I gave him the promotion. So
Yeah,
that promotion went out the window.
yeah. So if you don't know, when you sign up, if you sign up a buddy, essentially you can get up a go from E1 to E2 or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was just like a 20% pay raise. It's a
Yeah,
pretty big one, the E1 to E2.
you're the nice guy, and you get ended up getting taken advantage of in the end. That's unfortunate.
Nice guys finished last.
Yeah,
I'm still learning that lesson slowly.
yeah. I can sleep better at night though.
Yeah, that's what I say to my wife. She's like, "You're too nice." Like, yeah, well, I sleep better than the people who screw me over.
Yeah, yeah. So I think most for me, just based off timing, most of my better stories are from actually my conventional deployments when I was in the 101st, not when I was in Special Forces, just because of the years I deployed. So like my cooler stories are main, regular, essentially artillery and infantry with the regular army.
Yeah, I mean, basically half the time we went and got the intel for you guys to come in and do direct action, special forces. So
Yeah.
it's like we're on the street 3 times a day.
Yep. It's different. It's different. Absolutely.
Yeah, different off tempo,
Yep.
different food too.
Different food, different. We usually had like a private. Let us your grandmother specifically. Like, why not
Uh,
someone else?
well, my grandma, it's hard to explain. Me and her are very similar, right? Like, she is very adventurous, free spirited. Like, what I write in the book, she was climbing volcanoes, um, back in the 40s, right? Women weren't even allowed to run a marathon until 1970s. My grandma was climbing freaking volcanoes, mountaineering. And like back then, they didn't have ice axes and all that crap. They just freaking climb mountains, like very adventurous, very strong willed, very good work ethic. She's always been a role model in my life. And my grandpa, I never met him. He died in the late 70s, as far as I'm born. And she raised all 6 kids on her own and also excelled in the meantime. Like, it's amazing what she's done. But basically, all the kids grew up, all the kids left, and she was alone taking care of a 2-story house, on 5 acres with a pond and all those forests. Oh, I'm sorry, my uncles lived with her, two of them, but I wrote her so that way my family would come and see her, and that was the
Mhm.
primary reason. But also, I knew that she would read the letters because, like, everyone's so wrapped up in their lives. Go go go, do this, do that. Um, but my grandma, she's got all the time in the world. I know she would appreciate the letters, so I wrote her, and then also that would people want to hear from me, they go see her.
That's clever. I like it. What do you want people to get out of reading your book?
An understanding of a period of life and from the perspective of the common man on the ground.
Yeah.
Basically,
And
that's
for
the. Oh, go ahead.
for the people who don't know, what was your job in the Marines?
As a rifleman, that's the most basic job in the Marine Corps. It's the backbone of the Marine Corps. Every single job in the infantry supports the riflemen. Snipers support the riflemen. Machine gunners, pilots, everything supports the riflemen. It is the tip of the spear.
Yep. Yeah. Artillery supports the right. Yeah, it's the aviation is supporting the guy on the ground, the rifleman. Yeah,
You can't name a job that does not support the riflemen.
yeah.
So that's why I picked that one.
I'm not sure what the statistic is for the Marines, but I think in the Army, it's supposedly for every one rifleman, there's like 12 people that are supposedly supporting you.
Yeah, I'm sure it's around the same in the Marines.
That's the statistic. But as a rifleman, a lot of times you do not feel like anyone's supporting you.
No, not at all.
And the book covers. So talk about the deployments it covers,
Yeah, so
etc.
I did two deployments in Iraq and one in Afghanistan between the years of 2006 and 2010. Well, actually, I left my last deployment in late 2009. But yeah, so Barwana, Iraq, which is near the Haditha Triad. Our mission there was to stop the flow of insurgents from Syria into Baghdad because there's a big holy war going on, and everyone want to get in. Just imagine a big festival.
Hmm.
It's like Burning Man, right? People come from all the U.S. Well, Burning Man was in Iraq, but then I went back in 2008, and the mission had changed to policing tactics. So we were training, mostly a training mission. We were living at police stations, living with the Iraqi police and training them, and that's kind of when things had died. Like there wasn't much combat, but we suffered one of the worst suicide attacks in the Iraq War. Our battalion commander and company commander got killed as highest ranking officer of the Iraq War to die from Marines. But yeah. So and then we went to and then Afghanistan started to kick off because President Obama shifted the war to Afghanistan because the Helmand Province was being so the Helmand Province was given to the British, and we Americans mostly had the northern territories, like up in the mountains, Hindu Kush. But the British could not gain ground. Those guys, they couldn't leave their bases. They were being surrounded and attacked daily, and so they needed more support. So they sent two infantry battalions out in 2008, and then we were the second wave, I believe. And then we went out there, and basic job was to secure the area. Our area of operations was the size of Massachusetts. It was humongous. They're like, all right, you got 100 miles that way, 100 miles that way, and as far you got infinity north and infinity south.
Mm.
Secure it. Yeah, and our area is so big they split us up into platoons and gave each platoon their own little outpost, just HESCO barriers, like in the middle of a freaking desert, surrounded, and basically like, hey, survive. Logistics are terrible. If you want food, the Air Force would fly over and drop our food from pallets, but they always miss their target by big time, and then we have to fight the locals for it. Like they knew in our because they saw smoke, they're like, all right, they line up, and then we line up, and it was like freaking Braveheart. We just fight for food over that stuff. Like I remember kicking a kid in the chest, just trying to secure our pallets from them, ripping them apart. And yeah, kind of chaos there.
Mm.
I'd say chaos on the streets, but the streets is freaking Afghanistan. But anyways, yeah, so that was that deployment, which was totally bare bones, no infrastructure out there. So call for fire, easy. We can drop bombs anywhere, but Iraq is a little different, more infrastructure. You can't just drop bombs. You can't do, 500 pounders. That was more policing. Afghanistan was just like total war.
Yeah, I was gonna say compare and contrast Iraq and Afghanistan because I think some civilians that may not have any personal connection to any of them just kind of view it all as like, oh, war on terror. You go and fight in the desert. Period.
Oh, all right. So Iraq, they they had a government. We put in a puppet government, right? So they had structure, all this stuff, but the structure was killed. So imagine you live in a town and these insurgents came in and they killed all of your city council, they killed all your police. But there's still people living in a town, people still operating, but insurgents are running around the streets. They're intimidating the locals. So we have to go fish them out. We can't go just drop a bomb on your house. So we got to fish them out the hard way by breaking in the door, and trying to cooperate with you. It was policing tactics, martial law type stuff. Afghanistan was different. We're fighting an organized army. They used to run the country, right? So think about the United States of America gets invaded by the Soviet Union, just theoretically, never going to happen. But the United States government goes into hiding, but they still have their structure. They still have organization, and they still have a professional military. That's Afghanistan. The Taliban were professional. They fought in large numbers. They used tactics. They would get crossfire on it. Like they knew what they were doing. They're smart. They're brave, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
And but since the country doesn't have any infrastructure, we could do whatever we wanted. Like you see something, light it up. You know.
Yeah. Good.
Every time we got in a firefight, like play him to call in immediately, but like, hey, do you want us to drop a bomb? Like in Iraq, no, you have to request that, and that would be approved at the division level. To drop air had to be approved at the division level. To drop air in Afghanistan could be approved by me. Like that's the
Yeah, in
difference.
Iraq, it was it was a pain in the butt to get anything approved for indirect or even aviation fires. At least my
Yeah,
experience.
exactly. Yeah.
Now that you don't, I'm not looking for a political answer. You can answer however you want though. Now that we're, I don't know, a decade and a half removed at this point, you're a little bit older. You got a kid, you got married. Um, lost friends over there, right? Like, how do you, looking back, how do you feel about the experience or the war in general? You can answer personally, you can answer like big picture, just kind of like some personal reflections on Iraq and or Afghanistan.
I would just say it's the best decision I ever made because it made me who I am today.
Yeah,
Those rough nights in WTM, like, hey, this is the easiest thing in the world right now. So it gave me a very good foundation, and I'm glad I did it.
same.
And I'm sure you can agree, and every other veteran can agree. It's made us who we are.
Yeah, I think a lot of the life experiences that I learned over there just apply not only to racing but to everyday life and I don't know, finding a higher purpose in things. At least for
Well,
me,
I
it is.
mean, also, I think there's a paragraph in my book. It says in the Marine Corps, I learned how to be a leader, a manager, a janitor, a plumber, an electrician, a mechanic. I learned how to do everything because I had to do everything. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
what other job can you learn all those trades?
Yeah.
And you have to learn them to survive. So that's a very good job. It's like they make all these reality TV shows about, hey, go live in the woods for 10 days. It's like, no, go live in a combat zone for 7 months.
Yeah.
And hey, you got no logistics because every convoy is going to come out and bring you water or food is going to get blown up. So figure stuff out. Yeah.
That,
Anyways, that's why I'm glad I did it.
yeah. It's a different world, different experience. So I'm glad you wrote it. I'm glad you're sharing your story. I think that's important. Um, I feel like sometimes I don't know, as a veteran, sometimes I'm hesitant to share stories just 'cause I'm like, no one really cares. So, uh, I just
It
kind of
doesn't matter if they care, but it's therapeutic to write about it.
agree. I also agree with that.
That was your turn.
What do I think of it?
No, it's your turn. You got it right now.
Oh, the Ultra OCR man has some of my Iraq stories in there. So
Okay.
it I've checked. I share it as much as I'd say want to at this point in my life. Specifically to wartime stuff. So he's got a bunch of stories in there from my Iraq deployments and some of my other deployments to the Middle East. There are certain stories that I purposely exclude from the book because those are stories I prefer to tell other veterans in person. I don't like, especially ones where we have to make like difficult calls. I think there's an understanding other veterans have when you're like, well, you don't understand the complete picture, and I don't want other people armchair quarterbacking me or any of my guys that are making decisions that may be right or may be wrong in hindsight. So, um,
Yeah, understand.
I know you posted it was a couple weeks ago about possibly writing another book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so well, my grandma, so my son's birthday was on Saturday, and she was up. I hadn't seen her for a long time, and she was like, "You need to write a book about all your racing." So I'm gonna, because remember I had that blog, and people liked it. They liked my race stories, so I'm gonna compile all that into a book, which shouldn't take too long. I'm thinking 6 months I can finish it. But also I was gonna do a book about OCR
Nice.
called We Are OCR, and just follow the sport from beginning to from 2012. I was gonna start at 2010, but I mean, wasn't much happening there. We can summarize, what Spartan started in 2008.
No, like 2010 it started, I think. 2011, 2010, 2011.
Okay. Well, anyways, just summarize the first couple of years of how the sport kind of like, but then go into,
Yeah.
I want to hear from
Well,
the racers.
I think the first race was in 2010, but the first championship was in 2011. So I usually view the start of the sport as 2011, is my opinion.
Yeah. So I was going to start, I guess I could start in 2011. I mean, I've only got one person's input so far, but I got a big group, and I want to get from the race director's perspective, the media, and also the racers. And I just want to, I've created a spreadsheet with questions, send it to them. They can answer the questions from there. I'll just compile it and tell a story. And I think it's something worth telling. And at least the first, 8 years or 9 years of the sport, I want to stop at like 2020.
Yeah.
But
That's I love it. I was thinking of doing the same thing a couple years ago, and then I started doing the mental calculations on how much time and effort it was going to take, and the number of people I was going to have to talk to, and essentially the payback on return. And I was like, I don't think I have the bandwidth to do this right now. And I was like, maybe someone else will do it. So I'm super glad someone else is picking or is doing this. I think it's a really cool idea. And I think that first decade of the sport is super formative. Whether the sport blows up and ends up in the Olympics in a couple of years and, it gets back on TV, or whether it, dies down to like a low simmer for the next 20 years. I think the first decade, I think there was just a lot of stuff happening that's worth talking about.
yeah, you ever read the book Iron War?
Yeah, it's for people who don't know, Dave Scott and
Mark Allen.
Mark Allen, thank you, from like early days of Iron Man battling it out, with the two of them going one and two.
Yeah, the 80s were the golden years of triathlon. I mean, Ironman, sorry. And I think that the first 10 years, the 2010s were the golden years of OCR, and that's kind of the period I want to cover. But so that's why I want to try to focus on, you know, competition too, like Hunter, Hobie, Atkins, Alvin, Killian. Like I want to focus on the athletes too, but also I want to hear the business side of it, because I'm a businessman myself, and I'm curious about it, and I think other people would be too. like how they come up with these ideas. Like talking to Chris Maltby was very very interesting, hearing all of his stories when me and him were staying together in Maine. Just a whole side I don't know, and I'm sure people would love to hear that side. So
Yeah, and
that's why I want to compile both.
I think that's great. Yeah, again, because you sometimes when from a racer's perspective, we're like, oh, why are they doing X, Y, and Z? That's stupid. But if you don't understand the business, like there's usually a reason why they're not just randomly making it. It's not a bunch of dudes sitting in a room just being like, all right, let's just make random decisions. It's like, well, we think this is going to increase profits, or we think we'll be able to do X, Y, or Z if we do, these other steps as an intermediary. Um,
Well, it's funny because talking to Coach at Tough Mudder Seattle just the other week, I don't think they thought about any of that at all. I think they just came up with the craziest idea they could think of and put it on course. You remember 2015? You were talking about it earlier. Remember that giant balloon? You had to swim to it and then climb up.
yes, Wales something.
Yeah, but remember when it collapsed?
Oh yeah, and like someone almost died.
Yeah, you know who almost died?
No, who was it?
Amelia Boone.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, she was climbing up in the middle and then it collapsed and like basically almost drowned her. And then yeah, she chewed out was it Eli, I think was the race director that year. And he's like, yeah, dumb idea. I'm sorry. I mean, those are the good stories. Those are stories people want to hear. I gotta dig them out. And
Yeah.
that's my job. But hey, don't say you don't got time. You're retired now too.
Yeah, I started school though, so my time is I have even less time than I did before. So
Ah, school.
yeah. Yeah, so the OCR book and then your racing book. What's the timeline for these? When are we looking at ish, right? Because whatever you say, I honestly would probably add another 6 months to a year because that's whatever I say is usually about 6 months to a year off.
Oh yeah. Well, you don't know.
Okay.
I don't edit my books. If you fully read my book yet, you'll see so many errors.
Hmm.
But whatever.
The
I don't
editing
know.
takes the longest time. I thought I was done with my latest book, and started working on it, and like 20 hours later, I actually finished. To give you an idea of the work
Yeah.
volume of like the final touches of the book it's the worst part.
OCR book will be at least 18 months because I got to get a lot of people to cooperate, and it's the hardest part. The my racing stories that can be done pretty quick because I already have basically a lot of the stories written from
Hmm.
my old blog. I just gotta edit those and add more some hindsight or like additional content, and then just like my grandma book, scan, blah blah.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Good
Hey,
stuff.
if you want to help the OCR book, let me know.
I
I
will.
my
Yeah, I'm down.
two minds are better than one.
Any other big plans coming up? I know you mentioned that crazy elevation race in World Toughest Mud. Or anything else big looming on the horizon?
Everest 135. I'll be going to that race every year until I die
Okay.
or the race ends. So I'll be going back to that. Austin will be going back, and they gave me an ambassador basically position. It's not official, no contract, but basically said find who you can. So I got to find a male and female from almost every country in the world. America's covered. I talked to Rhea Coble. Remember her,
Yeah, of
WTM champion twice. I talked to her
course.
yesterday and asked her if she wanted to go, but she's training for the Olympics. She wants to do, I guess, skimo is going to be a winter sport in the 2026 Olympics. So she's going to be training for that during that time. But I'll see. But yeah, got to find some people from Mexico. Chikorita, I guess. I don't know, a male. Who's that guy from Spartan? That's from Mexico that did really well.
Angel, I think.
Yeah,
Angel
Angel. Yeah, should reach
Quintero,
out to
something.
him. But trying to get, they want to build this race up, especially with people who can actually. But I mean, this race is crazy. Like me and Austin took 110 hours last year to do 135 miles. It's not a running race. It's a mountaineering survival. Like you do well in it because you got that military background.
Yeah.
It's you basically got to have a mountaineering background, which I know Rhea would do well. She set the world record for most vertical feet in 24 hours. Like, it's over 55,000. So I'm on skis.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well,
yeah,
if you want to hear, I'm not going to make you retell the story now, but the story you told last time you were on the podcast about Everest 135 was crazy. You like legitimately like almost died.
yeah.
It's not an exaggeration. Like you legitimately it was like try not to die next year. So
It, this Me and Austin on the very first 18,000 foot pass, like we weren't up to the top yet. We were around 17,000 feet. It was like snowing hard. You could barely see. We both lay down and the clothes were in and fell asleep on the side of the mountain. Like eh, the altitude is no joke. Just imagine getting punched in the stomach with Mike Tyson. That's what altitude feels like.
crazy, crazy stuff. All right, let's before we let you go, what's the talk to me about future review for OCR. Are we doing OCR until we for the next decade? Or are we doing it a couple more years, or any kind of big final goals you want to announce
Oh, for myself or the sport?
for you for yourself, you personally as an athlete?
All right. So this year at WTM, I only got to run 80 miles to get 1,000 lifetime miles. So that's my B goal. But my A goal is to get one more 100-mile finish and try to win the race uh, a third time, which will put me and Atkins and Amelia as only 3-time winners. And the great part about it is that Austin Nazar is coming back, and we're going to go head to head. So let's try to
Ooh,
we're going to try to repeat 2016. We
spicy.
we talked about it a lot during Everest, and we're hiking together for freaking 4 days. So
Nice. Should be an exciting year. Any thoughts on the World Toughest Mudder moving to UK in 2025?
I like it. I love the UK. I got a lot of friends there, so it'd be great to go touch base with them again. And so I guess I'll be back. I mean, you just can't leave a race like that. It's amazing. I just want to see what it's like now that it's totally run by Spartan and all the Tough Mudder guys are gone.
Yeah.
I mean, the only guys that are left are the MCs, and they're 1099. They don't even work. So we'll see what it's like.
Yeah. We also do tell us one thing people would be surprised to know about you. Anything you would like to share about yourself that you already haven't shared?
I like to stay up late, watch movies, and eat Cheetos.
Is that how you're so fast? Is just fuel off Cheetos?
Yeah, that's why I don't have a six pack.
What's your movie genre? What's your go-to? What do you
I'm actually I know a lot about movies. I love everything. I know a good movie when I see one. I don't know. I watched Usual Suspects last night for like the 20th time. I love that movie.
This is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, hate him or not, he's a good actor. Kevin
Yeah,
Spacey.
yeah. I mean, you can be an awful person and still have other attributes that are admirable, even
Exactly.
right.
Yeah,
I think
but
that's
no, I like westerns. I like comedies as long as they're not in your face. I like everything as long
gotcha.
as it's a good movie. But
Yeah. Side note, I feel like that comment I made about like I feel like as military people, I feel like a lot of my military friends can identify that more often than civilians because I've had like leaders who I thought were completely terrible people, but I thought were like good military leaders and leaders who I thought were good people but not good leaders, if that makes sense.
I mean, tolerance is a strength.
Yeah.
If you can't tolerate something, then that's a sign of weakness. So, in my book, I get
Yeah.
along with everyone.
I
Punch me in the face, I'll smile back at you. You know.
I like it. All right. Any final shout outs you want to give? Where can people pick up Dear Grandma Rose?
The book's available on Amazon. Just because I went for the easiest format, or I mean, they call it platform. But also, I want to say thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity. I hope to see you soon. Will you be in WTM Miami?
I am not planning on going. I'm planning on going to Hannibal Race Qatar if that happens. If that does not happen, maybe. So we'll see.
Well, I hope it doesn't happen. I'd like to see you again.
I will cross paths at some point. I'm sure of it.
Oh yeah, you're not going anywhere in there, am I? So
Yeah. I don't know if it'll be going head to head on the race course, but you'll see me. I'm sure we'll cross paths again.
it'll be high fives.
Yeah,
That's
I don't. I think I might be hanging up the endurance shoes. I think 20 years might be enough for me. So we'll see.
no one likes a quitter.
Everyone's a quitter at some point. It's just a matter of when you quit. You know
Quit when I die.
then you quit by dying. That's another. You're quitting by dying. So.
Shit. Now we're going deep. All right, I guess.
All right, Trevor. Final shout out you want to give friends, family, sponsors, anything else we missed?
Will Hicks one more time.
Good choice. Oh, good idea. Thank you. I'm gonna read the actual thing. So tomorrow, be sure to check out the OCR report for the new episode, and keep listening all month long to the OCR report's 30 podcasts at September. That's the official name of OCR report's podcast blitz for the month of September. 30 podcasts at September. But if you want to pick up his book, Dear Grandma Rose, it's available on Amazon. I'll drop the link in the show notes down below. Please support authors, right? I'm not just saying that because I'm an OCR author, but if you want more OCR books, you should buy the OCR books that are out there, or the authors from the OCR that have written books, and that will send them demand signals to write more books. Especially with Trevor working on those other 2 books, buy this one. I think it's going to send a demand signal like, hey, keep writing. We like what you're doing. We like the stuff you're producing. And that OCR history book sounds really cool. It sounds like a great read, something that could be a keepsake for the sport in general. And his endurance book it'll just be just straight up interesting. Again, if you haven't listened to that Trevor Cichosz podcast where he talks about Everest 135, go back and listen to that one. I can't remember when it was, probably 2 years ago. But Strength and Speed, Trevor Cichosz, you'll find the podcast. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, I'm probably in 2025, I'm going to switch over from the normal podcast platforms to just YouTube, and that's how I will put out podcasts at an irregular interval, probably once a month or so. But that's where you're going to want to find all the Strength and Speed info. So head over to Strength and Speed on YouTube, subscribe, like some of those videos, check out some of the technique videos on there. If you're looking for Bleg Mitts, again, teamstrengthspeed.com. That's where you can pick up your Bleg Mitts. If you're looking for my OCR books, you can pick them up off teamstrengthspeed.com or off Amazon. And then my newest book, just released as of 2 days ago, is called Run If You Can, Destroy If You Must. It is the Tiga Tactics Runner's, Walker, and Hiker Guide to Self-Protection. So if you're a runner who spends early mornings or late nights out on the road, or just in the middle of the day, and you want to increase your personal protection, this is the book you're going to want to pick up. I crammed so much information into this book. It's about 130 pages, but it's just dense. It's super dense with self-protection advice. Something I wish I had years ago, and something I wish, in order to write this book, I've been essentially doing research for about 5 years on self-defense, and then on top of that, using about 20 years of military experience, and then on top of that, using my 20 years of actual endurance training experience. I ran my first marathon back in 2003, right? So there's just a lot of information crammed into this book. And then I took information from Patrick Vaughn and Conrad Boyd, my co-hosts of the Tiga Tactics podcast, the founders and owners of Tiga Tactics, and I used their methodology, again, which is distilled from decades upon decades upon decades of martial arts experience. So head over and pick up that book, Run If You Can, Destroy If You Must. Hard copy's out now. I think the digital one releases at the end of the month. And if you want to hear more about just self-protection in general for free, head over and subscribe to the Tiga Tactics podcast. Again, share that around. You can train Tiga Tactics, their self-protection stuff, from the comfort of your own home, and learn some valuable skills. That's what I would use to teach my spouse, my kids, anyone I'm looking for self-protection advice. That's just super distilled, very good. All right, everyone. We'll see you all in the next episode. I think I'm going to have another episode this month because I'm contractually obligated. And by contractually obligated, I mean I promised Will Hicks I would do another one. So I will see you again on September 28th. We'll catch all you guys later. Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks.